Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I know we start every one of my shows this way because I do think it's so super cool that we live in this day and age where it doesn't matter what time zone we are in or where we are located, we can all come together at one place and at one time and have amazing conversation. So I want to welcome everyone. Share with us below in the comments where you are tuning in from. I'm here in Houston. Jeff, where are you located?
Long Island, New York.
Woohoo! We love New York. I actually have some great stories from New York, but we can talk about that later. I want to welcome Jeff Goldberg to the HumAIn Sellovatorz show. He is an amazing individual that I'm hoping that you'll have an opportunity in the comments below to ask any questions that you have. But I want to allow him to do his own introduction. But before I do, I wanted to share just a little bit about how I met Jeff. I actually met him, as we all have met one another, it seems, here on LinkedIn. I had an opportunity to be a guest on his podcast, and I'm looking forward to when that releases. But in the meantime, I'm so super excited to have Jeff here and participating in some amazing conversation. As we know, the Sellovatorz show is all about sales and learning not only about other sales experts, but some of their strategies, that just having good conversation about the challenges and maybe even some of the successes that we're seeing, where we can make improvements and so much more. So I'm super excited, Jeff, to have you here. I would not be able to do you justice if I were to introduce you. So if you could just introduce yourself for us, I would so greatly appreciate that.
My pleasure, Denise. I'm happy to be here. And I think you can sum it up as that I'm a sales god. Well, let's see. I've been in sales for just about 49 years now. I've sold a bunch of very different things. I went into sales management for 14 of those 49 years. I own my own headhunting firm. And when I closed that down in 2003, I was looking for my next job and answered a blind ad in the New York Times, which turned out to be for one of the well-known sales training companies, which is now defunct, not my fault. But that's where I learned the business of both selling and delivering sales training. It turned out to be the perfect job for me. Number one, I love helping people. And don't get me wrong, I love getting paid for helping people. But I truly am that giving type who loves to help others succeed. And sales management are the things I know best. So after being there for about a year and a half, I went to my wife, now my ex-wife, and said, honey, I'm going to open up another business and we're going to do really well because this is the job for me. And she said, if you're going to open up another business, you're going to do that while you're married to another woman. And then the day she signed the divorce papers was the day I opened up Jeff Goldberg and Associates. I've been working with salespeople and sales organizations internationally through training, coaching, and outsourced sales management and consulting for the last 19 years. And I love my job.
I love that. Well, and you saw me kind of, maybe laugh was a harsh way to describe, but I did smile when you were talking about your ex-wife, because you did talk about it in a kind of a laughing, jokingly spirited, kind of happy spirited mind space. But that is no joking matter, I'm sure. And for that, I apologize if that felt kind of weird for anyone who was watching, but he talks about it in such a happy, because I feel like, and even in sales, it doesn't matter whether it's our personal lives or sales, everything works as though it should. And when one door opens, when one door closes, another door opens, right? And so there's a rhyme and a reason for everything, because sales is, 90%, one could argue it's probably more than that, but 90% mind space, and allowing things to just flow as they should. Doesn't mean we don't have to work towards it, but allowing things to flow as they should, because everything works as though it's supposed to.
Yeah, Denise, if you don't mind, I have to say, I love my ex-wife. I don't want to live with her, and she doesn't want to live with me, but she's the mother of my children. She gave me the three greatest gifts in my life, my three wonderful kids, and they are wonderful. And if I made you laugh, it's also because I'm a stand-up comedian besides doing sales training.
Yeah, which is why I love Jeff for a lot of different reasons. But no matter what type of conversation you have, I always find myself smiling and or laughing in some moments with Jeff, because he just makes it so much fun. And really, when we think about sales in general, it should be fun. This mentality that it's hard. Yes, sales is hard. But when we carry that on into our demeanor and our characteristics when we're engaging with our prospects, we're most certainly going to fail. It should be fun. I mean, sales is, who in what other profession in this world do we have an opportunity to have amazing conversation with amazing individuals on a regular basis, doing something we love? And oh, by the way, we get paid a lot of good money to do it, right? When we are successful.
Yeah, maybe if you're a podcast host and your name is Joe Rogan. But sales is a great career. Excuse me. And actually, my stepfather, who was a career salesperson, told me something when I first started out, and it stuck with me ever since. And he said, sales is a great career, and here's why. Every morning, you get to wake up, look yourself in the mirror, and give yourself a raise. And then all you have to do is go out and earn it. And that stuck with me for a long, long time now. And as far as fun, maybe it's because of my age, because I'm older than dirt, and maybe it's because of my level of success, and I do all right. But I'm not going to do anything if it's not fun. If I'm working with a client, it's not fun, I fire the client. I don't take on assignments just to make money. I need money like everybody else. But I believe every salesperson has to have what I call, and there are different names for it, an ideal client profile. Who's my best possible prospect that can become my client? What are the traits and characteristics they have? And if they don't have those, I'm not going to work with them. And one of them is, if you're not going to be fun to work with, I'm not interested. I don't need your business. And the only reason, and I'm sure you know this, Denise, but the only reason I'm able to do that is because I'm consistently prospecting for new business. I've always got new deals in the pipeline. And at this point right now, I've got people waiting to do business with me because I'm too jammed up and I can't even take on a certain type of client right now. So that's the only thing that allows me to do that. And again, if it ain't fun, I ain't doing it.
Well, I love your mentality, because I agree with you if it isn't fun any longer, but it took me a long time to get there, right? I mean, and I turned 52 this year, and I would say it took me, and I mean, I always thought I had fun in sales, but there were moments where I allowed the stress to overtake me, and it became hard and hard and hard and hard every day, in and out. And it was because I was in this horrible mind space. But the reality is that it should be fun. But it unfortunately took me longer to get to that point where it was consistently fun every single day. Right. But I'm like you. I am my father was, while he was by job title, by profession, he was a firefighter. You know, firefighters worked 24 on, 48 off. And he was a salesperson in those 48 hours where he wasn't on at the fire department. He was a salesperson. You know, he had multiple different jobs because, 20 years of my life at home, but, a long time, right? But so he had multiple jobs, but it was all related to sales. But let's talk about something that I think, you and I were talking about. I feel like you mentioned something about prospecting, and that the good thing about where you're at and why it's so much fun is that you have a pipeline full of opportunities that you can't even really fit onto your calendar right now. So they're on standby, waiting list, whatever you define that. One of the things we talked about, though, in the beginning prior to jumping on here was that you think one of the biggest challenges that salespeople have today is they're just not having enough conversations. They're not enough prospects. I'd like to talk about that a bit, because I do see that as a problem, but I also see another second level issue that we're having, which might be a result of, and I don't know which one comes first. That old theory, the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken, right? But I'd love to have this conversation around prospecting. Why do you think that we are, as salespeople, not having enough conversations?
Oh, that's easy. We're not prospecting consistently enough, and we're not prospecting effectively enough. And it's got to be both. If you're doing it all the time, but you suck at it, what's the use? Mm-hmm. If you're really good at it, but you're not doing it consistently, again, you'll have some conversations and close some deals, but you'll have what I call the ups and downs of selling. A good month followed by a bad month, a good quarter followed by a bad quarter, a good year followed by a bad year. And the reason is simple, Denise. We don't want to prospect because it's not fun. My favorite example, and when I say my favorite example is I don't want to do it, I love teaching it, but my favorite example is cold calling. Who wants to cold call people? It's massive rejection. I don't care how good you are at way more people say no than yes, and some of them are downright rude. The reason I don't want to do it myself, and by the way, I built my business from cold calling. When I left the training company I was working with to open up my own, I had nothing to do except develop business. I knew what I wanted to do, but I needed some clients. I sat on the phone all day long for months and months, just getting appointment after appointment after appointment. But I also became good at a lot of other things so that eventually I could get away from cold calling. And here's why I hate it so much. And I'm a fan of it, by the way. I think that many, if not most salespeople should be doing at least some cold calling. But the reason I hate it so much, and he says, I want every call to sound like this. So if you were a vice president of sales with 100 salespeople who I wanted to get in touch with to have a meeting and possibly talk about doing training for you, it would sound like this. Hi, Denise, this is Jeff Goldberg. And you would say, stop right there. I've heard about you, Jeff. I know you're so good that you're going to get the appointment. And once you get here, you're going to sell me. Why don't I save us both some time and just send you a check right now? Except those calls don't go like that, too.
They don't happen like that. It would be nice.
That way.
But they don't happen.
Yeah. So, many types of prospecting are painful or very time intensive. And some also cost a lot of money to do. So salespeople shy away from it. I would suggest that unless you are handling major accounts, and maybe you have 2 or 3 accounts that account for all your business, and you got to take every day, all year long, taking care of those accounts. Otherwise, you might lose one. Then maybe you don't have to do too much prospecting, but you still have to do some. For most of us, though, we have to prospect consistently, and that means every single day to get the number of meetings that we need to get based on our closing ratio to hit our or exceed our goals. And we just don't want to do it because it's not fun. Now, I've worked hard at things that are more fun than cold calling and become good at those so that I do get enough people reaching out to me. And that's really what I'm looking for, Denise. I'm looking for people who raise their hand rather than me reaching out and saying, hey, do you need any sales training? Do you need some coaching? Do you need some online, whatever it is that I'm offering? Do you need any of that? I want people who reach out to me and go, hey, Jeff, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 9 months now. I love everything you say. Can we talk about you coming to train my team or coaching me or whatever it is they're looking for? That's what I'm working for. But most people just aren't doing enough of it, and they're not doing it consistently.
Well, that's 2 different topics here that we could unpack, because the reality is we all want to get to a point where, like you said, we are getting more inbound leads than we are having to outbound, right? And in order to get those inbound leads, we have to have a presence. So we have to be visible and we have to have credibility. And I'm sure, I think that's a whole nother conversation that we can have here in a moment. But when we talk about the outbounding, because the reality is it takes a little bit of time to get to inbounding, where you're getting so many inbound leads. And while that's ideal and, we want more of those, in order to get there, you've got to do some outbounding still on the front end, right? So when we talk about outbounding, I'm not, as like you said, I'm not a fan of cold calling necessarily either. I do it in my own way, but I've transformed them more into warm conversations rather than cold conversations. When you are coaching your clients, how do you teach them to do a better job at cold calling? Even though it's not really one of our favorite things, it is a necessary evil. How do you teach them to maybe be a bit more excited or excel a bit more so that they can see better success?
Sure. The first thing is to understand that everything has a price to pay. And cold calling may just be the price that you have to pay in order to get where you want to go. If you don't have it, look, it's still the most cost-effective and time-efficient way to fill up your calendar with appointments if you don't have enough, and if you do it well. And by the way I teach is not the only way. There's some real amazing experts out there who can help people learn how. The next thing is you've got to have a great list. You've got to define what your target market is and be calling the right people. If you're calling scattershot, using the shotgun approach, trying to get everybody, I think you're going to have a very difficult time. Much easier if you're trying to reach the people who might actually have a need for what you've got. After that, you've got to have a script. And I know that salespeople groan when I say that, except here's the thing. The call, if you're actually fortunate enough to get somebody on the line, which you and I both know is very hard to do these days, but if you're fortunate enough to get somebody on the line, that conversation goes like this. It's very quick because they have their responses like tattooed on the inside of their eyeballs. And mostly it's their objection. I'm not interested. I'm happy with my current provider. Send me some information. I'm busy. We've got some, there's only really 7 things people say to you, but you've got to be prepared for what you're going to say. And you've got to grab their interest right away. You've got to gain the right to have another 10 seconds of conversation so that you can get to the point where they tell you I'm not interested or I'm happy with my current provider, whatever. And then you've got to be prepared for how do I handle those? How do I get past the automatic response that almost everyone gives to a cold call and get them to actually engage in the conversation. And when I say automatic response, let me ask you this, Denise. Do you like shopping?
Of course.
Okay, I don't. I only like shopping for two things. One is electronics, because I'm a guy, and cars, because I love to torture car salespeople. If any of your audience are ever looking to buy a car, take me with you. You'll have so much fun, because I love to make those guys look stupid. But for most of us, I don't like shopping for anything else. But I take it back. I'm wrong. I like grocery shopping too, only because as an adult, I buy whatever I want.
Oh, see, that's the one I hate the most is grocery shopping, because you go in and you spend your money and you walk out with, yes, a basket full, although it doesn't seem like it's enough compared to what you spent. And then next week, it's all gone. So you have nothing to show for your money and you got to go back and do it again.
Well, I'm just a kid at heart, and as an adult kid, I can buy whatever I want. But here's the thing. Let's say clothes shopping, which is my least favorite thing to do. I don't have good taste, which is the thing I miss most about being married, because my ex had fantastic taste. But when you walk into a department store, do you have Bloomingdale's down there in Texas?
Yes. Well, okay. Somewhere, but yes.
So, something like Bloomingdale's. So you walk into a store, quite often there's somebody my age at the door, holding the door open with a big smile on their face, and they ask you a question. Now, I'm going to ask you the question right now. Please don't answer it out loud. They'll ask you, "Hi, can I help you today?" And there's something you say back to them, right? Don't say it out loud yet, right? Is it no thanks, I'm just looking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we all say. That's everybody's knee-jerk reaction to clerks in department stores, even though as you turn around and walk away, you come back and go, oh, wait a minute, where's the black shirts? Where's the watches? Where's whatever you're looking for that day? But our knee-jerk reaction to clerks in department stores is, get away from me. Same thing on the telephone. When somebody gives you an objection on the telephone, it's the knee-jerk reaction that they give to every cold caller. I'm busy. No kidding. Of course, if you're not busy, I don't want to talk to you anyways. How successful are you if you're not busy? I'm happy with my current provider. Of course you are. If you weren't, you would have called me. I'm not interested. Same deal. So you've got to be prepared with your script, a great attitude, the understanding that most people are going to say no, and you got to be prepared to turn the people around from their automatic negative pattern of whatever they're going to say. That's what I
All right. So I love this. So how do you change? Now I tend to ask questions that I feel like I know the answer to anyway, because the reality is, one is, as salespeople, we can always continue to improve. We can always upskill. We can always get better. And I'm not the all-knowing. And there are a million salespeople out there, and everyone has somewhat of a different strategy. And oh, by the way, their strategy might actually be effective for you. So while I may know some of the answers to some of the questions I ask, I do this with purpose and intent, because I really think that we each have value that we can bring. And my way is not the only way. Jeff's way is not the only way. And we can all continue to learn and upskill, because times are changing, everyone's evolving, and we all have different experiences that we can learn from and gain insights from. So Jeff, I'm asking you out of true sincerity, why do you think, or when you go in, and how do you switch someone from that immediate thought to, hey, no, I'm not interested? How do you change that for them so that you can actually get them on the phone a bit longer?
Oh, so if you said to me, hey, Jeff, I'm just not interested.
Yes.
Oh, that's okay, Denise. You know what? Cablevision, one of my best clients, told me the exact same thing when I first reached out to them, until they gave me the chance to come in and show them how what we do could benefit them. I'd love to come by and show you what I did for Cablevision. How's Tuesday at 3?
Love that, because
the first
them, right?
is knee-jerk. They're not even thinking about it. They literally say the same exact thing to everybody. But in psychology, what I just did is called a pattern interrupt. I'm interrupting your automatic negative pattern, which you're not even thinking about. And now I'm going to go, oh, it worked for somebody else. Maybe I should find out what Jeff did for Cablevision. By the way, Cablevision, a client of mine. You've got to talk when you say something like that. It's got to be real.
It's got to be real.
Don't ever lie to your audience. Don't ever lie. Don't ever cheat. If you need to lie, cheat, or steal to make money in sales, either go find a different job or go find a better job in sales. But yeah, the reason I can mention Cablevision is they were a client of mine.
Well, and before you can even get someone before you can even do that pattern erupt, right? You have to, when they first get on the phone, you have to give them a value prop statement of some sorts, right? You've got to give them a reason to even stay on that call for that brief moment. That's what you didn't say that out loud. That's what I advocate for. And that's what I would assume you meant, right? That you, in order to get, because you've got to first say, hey, how's it? You're not going to say, hey, how are you doing today? You might, but that's usually not going to be the way that you engage in a conversation, because they're going to wonder, who the hell is this, right?
No, they're
How
not.
do you
Actually, if you say, how are you doing today? They know you're one of two people. You're either their mother or a salesperson, because that's the only person who calls you and says, how are you today? No, I get
No
right
one
to
does
the point. Hi, Denise. This is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. Denise, do you know us? And you might either say yes or no. And if you say yes, I'll go, oh, so you already know. And if you say no, I'll go, oh, we're a sales coaching and training firm. We work with companies just like yours to help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. Now, the specific reason I'm calling you today, Denise, is to set an appointment. I'd love to come by, find out what you're currently doing to increase sales, tell you just a little bit about what we do, and see if there's a match. How's Tuesday at 3? And that's when you're going to say, I'm not interested. I'm happy, not whatever you're going to say. Right. Yeah, that's my opening.
Yeah, because the reality is no one, I mean, when you ask how you're doing, I always say, and you can disagree with me or maybe confirm or expand on it, but I always say that when you are selling, think of it as in terms of a friendship, right? You're not immediately friends with someone, no. So you can't really always assume that you can't go right into a conversation thinking that, setting it up as though you are best of friends. But when you talk about a friendship, right? When you call someone up, I'm like, hey, Brandy, how's it going? Well, I may ask her, how's it going? But I usually don't really care, because I've been texting with her. And it's not that I don't care how it's going. I usually have an agenda, and she knows that, right? But when that's because I've had a well-established friendship. But when I have a newer friendship, I'm like, hey, Brandy, I'm calling because, right? Because I don't really, it's not that I don't care how she's doing. It's just that I've been texting with her anyway. It's pretty standard, a standard response. And we don't really care to share necessarily when we're doing shitty, right? I just said a cuss word. But so why would you even be honest anyway when you ask when you're asked how you're doing? Everyone gives just a standard answer, right?
And what if your prospect says, yeah, I'm doing shitty. What can I do for you?
And then you're like, oh gosh, I just opened Pandora's box. What the hell do I do?
I'm here to brighten up your day. No, that ain't going to do it. Here's the thing for me, Denise. I consider myself a typical consumer, and maybe I'm a little less patient than many, but I like people who get right to the point. Don't waste my time. I always say that you can almost always get healthy if you're sick. Almost. You can always make more money, but the one thing you cannot get back is time. So I respect people's time. By the way, I respect my time more. So I'm going to get right to the point, and let's see, in this first 30 seconds, can I get an appointment with you? And if not, I'll spend another maybe minute at the most trying to turn you around. And if not, I'm on to hunting for better fish. I'm looking for the fish that are biting, and I'm not going to waste my time or yours. And truthfully, I don't care about wasting your time. I mean, as a human, I do, but I am protecting my time, because that's how I feed my 3 kids.
I love that. And I wish that, even when I have conversations with salespeople today, it's like, dude, get to the bottom line, get to the point. And maybe that's because I am a salesperson, but put my salesperson hat aside, just as a basic consumer, as you mentioned, I don't really want to waste your time. And I most certainly don't want to waste my time. Time is our most valuable asset. And especially as we get older, we have less and less of it. But even as we are younger, there are only so many hours in a day. We were talking about that a bit ago before we jumped on. We all have the same amount of time. There are so many hours in a day, and we got bigger and brighter things to work on. If you can qualify in and qualify out very quickly, then you can move on to the next, so that you can do the same with the next prospect, thereby building your pipeline at a faster pace than if you just sit and ho-hum around.
100%. And if I could just add in, don't do stupid bullshit. Pardon my French, but I got a call about 3 weeks ago, and here's what it sounded like. Hi, Mr. Goldberg. This is your copier company calling. Could you please walk over to your copier and tell me what model you have? Now, I bought my copier at Staples, so I know it wasn't my copier company. I simply said, if you're my copier company, how do you not know what you sold me? It's stupid. There's no way you're going to do something stupid like that to me and then get an appointment out of me. So just be straight to the point. In fact, you could almost call people and say, hey, I'm in sales. I'd like to get together with you and share with you how we help companies like yours improve this. Want to do that? It doesn't have to be very fancy. Just get to the point where where you understand that most people are going to give you that negative response. And the key is, how do I engage you in that conversation so we can get to the negative response, and then I can try to turn you around.
I love that, because that is the reality. It is reminding yourself that you are going to get a negative response. So how do you flip that? And if you can't flip it, okay, fine. Close it, go to the next one. Because sometimes no matter what you do or say, you're not going to be able to flip it, because sometimes it's just about timing.
Yeah. So a VP of sales who I greatly respect, he's become a friend of mine, taught me something years ago. And when I do training, my instructions to the VP of sales is, look, if you're going to attend, please feel free, but sit in the back of the room so your team's not staring at the back of your head and they're intimidated all day long. Please don't say anything unless I say something that's completely foreign to your industry or your company. But I'm doing this training, I think it was North Carolina. And the guy gets up and starts walking to the front of the room where I have a flip chart. And I'm like, all right, I'm in the middle of something. Why is he coming up here? And he actually stands next to me and goes, Jeff, take a look at this. And he takes out a pen and draws on the flip chart, SW, SW, SWN, exclamation point. SW, SW, SWN, exclamation point. He goes, you know what that means? And I'm like, got to tell you, Mark, you got me. I have no idea. And he said, some will, some won't. So what? Next. Brilliant.
I love that. So I think that's an awesome nugget to write down. SW, SW, SWN. Some will, some won't.
So what?
So what? Next.
Exactly right.
Love
so
that.
If somebody gives you a hard time on the phone, it's nasty, or for whatever, just won't go for the appointment. Hang up, record the results, dial the phone again, because that next person might be the one that goes, oh yeah, you know what? I do need some sales training. I do need some sales coaching. I do need a new widget, whatever it is that you sell. I often equate it to dating. Sales and dating are very similar. You know, does she like me? Does she like me enough to go out with me? Does she like me enough to close the deal? I mean, it's very similar. You got to, you probably heard, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. Same thing in sales.
So what about this concept now of taking it, because not everyone's going to cold call, right? Because, the success rate is really, really low. So we're seeing more and more people really moving from cold calling in the sense of picking up the phone, and not as much cold emailing either, but to cold DMing. So are you doing a lot of time spending coaching hours or coaching minutes maybe with your clients, teaching them how to do a better job of prospecting in the DMs?
Nope. I mean, I do talk about email and DM marketing, but it's just part of the overall plan. In my program, Professional Prospecting, we talk about cold calling, we talk about email, we talk about networking, which I'm huge on. 30% of my business comes from networking. We talk about getting referrals. We talk about using LinkedIn, which to me is the salesperson's best friend. 30% of my business comes from the networking group that I belong to for 19 years now. 30% of my business comes from LinkedIn. And it's not from me DMing people to say, hey, do you need any sales training? And it's definitely not me reaching out to people to connect and then saying, hey, do you need some sales training? The way I use LinkedIn is through content marketing. Every day, 5 days a week, I post something. Usually at 8 a.m. And then occasionally I'll post something else during the day, but I'm consistently giving value to the people that I want to sell my services to. So I'm giving away the advice that I sell to people. In fact, right now, this week, all last week and this week, I am going through each step of the sales process that I teach to people for substantial amounts of money. I'm giving away the sales training that companies pay me lots and lots of money to come in and teach their people, or I also have online programs that people can learn it, but I'm giving it away. And clearly reading one part of the sales process on one day is not the same as attending a full day training or hire me as your coach or something like that. But I find that when you give people value, that's when they raise their hand. And it's kind of like being a drug dealer. Hey, you like this? Check it out. Oh, you like it? Now you want to buy some? So that's all I'm doing. I'm just giving people a taste every single day. And again, consistency. Every day, 5 days a week, I am posting valuable information for salespeople and sales managers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. That there again, however, that takes a bit of time to build that. And we've got, a multitude or a variety of different types of salespeople. We have the ones that are just getting into the field who are, learning the nuances of all the things that need to be done. Then you've got on the other spectrum, these super successful, been doing it for a really long time. They've got a lot of their referrals down. You know, they built their business enough so that now they're just looking to expand, but they have also built their visibility and credibility already on LinkedIn. And then you've got these in between who they've been doing it for a while. So they're not the newbie, but they're not really the exceptional sales rep yet. And so they're kind of struggling with, how do I now make a bigger impact? How do I get more inbound leads? Because there again, a lot of that networking and that content strategy, which you just mentioned combined, is about 60% of your business, 30% from each of those, means that they are really out there, they're visible, and they've established some sort of credibility. Because even in your networking group, you have to establish some sort of credibility within that group. So how do we get to that point? I think that's one of the biggest struggles. Is it's simple. I think the recipe for that is simple, but it's that it takes a bit longer, right, than the traditional cold calling. But the reality is, cold calling, while we still need to do it, while we still need to practice it, while there is some success, we've got to move away from necessarily all of that focus there and really start now to build a presence, either in your networking groups, on LinkedIn, or any other media platform, or the combination of those. And I think that's where most people are struggling.
I'm fine with a salesperson who just wants to cold call as long as they're getting enough appointments and they don't mind doing it. I don't want to do it. I often say, not jokingly, I'd rather live in my car than ever have to cold call again. And I do it once a month just to make sure that what I'm teaching people is still working. But I don't want to do that. I'd rather starve. But when I built my business, at the same time, I was working on my networking and I was working on LinkedIn. I just got a notice the other day. I've been on LinkedIn for 20 years. Had no idea it's been that long. Happy anniversary, Jeff. They sent me a message. But yeah, it did take me a while to get to the point. So that's why cold calling was so important, because it's more immediate. Another thing that was immediate for me was speeches. When I worked for a sales training company, the lead trainer there was kind of running the show, came into my office. I think it was after about 2 or 3 months. And he goes, what are we going to do? I'm like, about what? He goes, well, the main thing we teach at this company is cold calling, and you hate doing it. I'm like, yeah, I know. I can't stand it. It's painful. He goes, so what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, what do you like doing? I said, I love talking to people. I love training. He goes, so go give speeches. Go book a bunch of speeches. That's a great way to develop business. And I'm like, oh, great idea. I Googled networking groups on Long Island, came up with a list of like 25. All of them had contact information, and I offered my services. I will come in and do a 1-hour free talk on how to improve your sales if you'll just let me come into your meeting. Went in, talked to a lot of people, gave speeches, also went to Kiwanis clubs, Rotaries clubs, public libraries. Anybody who would let me talk, I would come in and talk. And the National Speakers Association says that out of every speech you give, 1 out of 10 people in your audience will be interested in what you've got. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily buy, but you should have some people in your audience that are interested. That's what I found to be true. I was also incredibly fortunate to be introduced to a great organization by one of my clients. After working with them for 6 months, I was sitting in the VP's of sales office at the end of the engagement. He's thanking me, and Jeff, you did a great job. What can I do for you? I'm like, you've paid me. I mean, that's pretty damn good. He goes, no, I want to do something else. Do you like giving speeches? I'm like, yeah, I love giving speeches. And he said, do you know what Vistage is? Are you familiar with Vistage?
Mm-hmm, I am, yes.
Good. So I did not know what Vistage was. He goes, you're going to love this. Picks up the phone, calls a guy, doesn't explain to me what Vistage is, calls a guy. He says, hey, man, I've got this great guy. He's expert in sales. He loves giving speeches. Let me put him on the phone with you. And he hands me the phone. I'm like, who is this? And the guy booked me immediately. He goes, you like giving talks? Can you do 3 hours? Okay. And he gave me a date. Well, for those who don't know in your audience, Vistage is a CEO peer group. In other words, CEOs join Vistage. They'll have usually between 6 and 20 members. They get together once a month and they have a meeting. And during that meeting, they bring in a Vistage approved speaker, somebody who's been approved by Vistage to talk, and you get to do a 3-hour talk. So this guy books me for a 3-hour talk. I'm halfway through. They're taking a break. One of the audience members comes up to me, one of the CEOs who's a member of this group. He goes, hey, do you do this for companies? I'm like, yeah, that's how I make a living. He goes, you're hired. I said, you don't even know how much I charge. He goes, I don't care how much you charge. I need you. So speeches can be a great way to develop business. And I fell in love with Vistage. And my ego loves a big audience. You put me in front of 200 people, I'm happier than in front of 10. 2,000 is even better. But you put me in a room with 10 CEOs, that's a target-rich environment, my friend. By the way, the key, and I'm sure you know this, Denise, it cannot be a sales pitch. You can't get up there and pitch your goods for 3 hours. You've got to really add incredible value, no sales pitch whatsoever, but they're raising their hand afterwards. And I love that. I'm very big on metrics, and I actually don't have metrics on this, but my gut says 85% of the time when I give a Vistage talk, I get business either on the spot or within 7 days.
I can see that. I mean, the reality is when you lead by serving, which is by giving value, right? Then it comes back to you twofold, threefold, fourfold. I mean, it just comes back to you in ways that you can't even imagine. So when we're talking about a great, and I know we're getting close to time, and I so apologize to Chella. She's been out there commenting, and normally when I start a live, I always have the comments open, but for technical reasons, I was kicked off before, right before this started. And so I kind of just did not have everything set up the way I would normally would, because I really just wanted us to go live. So that being said, I apologize to Chella. I appreciate you being out there. I know there are others. And so thank you for those that have been with us live. I want to be respectful of your time. We're getting close to coming to an end. But if we're going to leave the audience with whether you're team live or team replay. So if you're in team replay, let us know that as well with the hashtag team replay. But for those of us that are engaged and listening and really want to walk away with something of super value, which all of this has been valuable, but maybe one thought. When I think about all the things we've talked about, putting a strategy together that includes both inbounding and outbounding. Inbounding means, and I'm just going to set the stage, and then I want you, Jeff, to take off with it and kind of finish out the thoughts. But setting intentional strategies in place for inbounding and outbounding. Inbounding includes making sure that you're getting visibility, which is getting in front of people, having the conversations, but in speech formats, getting opportunities to speak, getting on, guesting on lives, guesting on podcasts, writing blogs, writing content on LinkedIn, having the conversation in the comments. So maybe you're not a huge content generator or content creator, but having conversations in the comments of the posts, those are just as valuable as long as you're adding value in those. And then having a outbounding strategy, which includes even cold calling and, maybe it's cold emailing and some DMing. I know you personally don't do a lot of DMs. I do a lot more DMs, but I'm not trying to sell my services. It's more of just having the conversations. But maybe take it from there, add your spin to it, kind of give your thoughts, maybe share with us some metrics, however you want to leave the conversation.
Sure. Well, first for Chella, thank you for your input. That last S, leave that off. It's SW, SW, SWN. Some will, some won't. So what next? So to me, actually, you know what I prefer to do, if you don't mind? Well, first of all, for people who don't think they can produce content, if only there was somebody who was an expert in using some kind of a tool that could help you generate content, maybe with some kind of intelligence, I don't know, maybe an artificial one. I mean, if you guys can't develop content, you should be calling Denise, because she is an AI expert. And while I do not use AI to develop my content, it's a great way to do it. The only advice I'll give you is that if you're going to use AI to develop your content, don't just post what AI spits out. Take it and make it your own. I can almost always tell when somebody's responding with AI or posting with AI. I don't want to do business with robots. I want to do business with people, but AI is a great beginning. And what I do use it for is when I'm creating email cadences for clients. They want to send out 7, 10 emails, over a period of time. I could write those, except you know what? AI does a great job. Again, though, you've got to change it, because for some reason, at least ChatGPT thinks every letter should start out with, "Hope you're doing great today." Well, if you send out 8 letters in a row that say that, somebody's probably going to figure out it was
Somebody's
AI.
going to know, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do that. If you'd like me to leave your audience with one last thought, if you don't mind, I'm going to switch to a different topic.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Yep.
Thanks. So this is what I consider to be the most important thing I teach salespeople. And when I do live programs, there's always somebody who wants to come up and shake my hand as I'm setting up my computer and stuff like that. And at some point, they always say the same thing, which is, oh, I love this. I've heard great things about you, and I love training because if I learn one thing, it was worth it. I hate that phrase because if you spend any amount of time with me more than 10 minutes and you only learned one thing, you got ripped off. I pack a lot into a very short time, like I know you do. But here's the thing. If you only learned one thing from me, it would be this. If you want to shorten your sales cycle, and if you want to make sure that you're dealing with interested prospects and stop getting ghosted, practice what I call the BNAS. Chella, I like acronyms. BNAS, which stands for Best Next Action Step. And it's a philosophy, and it simply means this. Never, ever leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there, period. Now, the typical salesperson, as you know, Denise, is going to end a meeting like this. Let's say you're my prospect, and I would end, if I'm a typical salesperson, I'll end it like this. Wow, Denise, this has been a great meeting. You've given me a lot of terrific information. Here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office and think about everything we talked about. I'm going to put some ideas down on paper on how we can increase sales at your company. And I'd like to reach out to you again. Once I've got that proposal written, I'll call you. We'll set up another meeting. I'll come back and share my ideas with you. That way, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you, Denise? And the Denise in this example says the same thing. Sounds good.
Thanks.
Sounds terrific. Sounds great. But what did they agree to? You agreed that it's okay with me to go back and write a proposal and that I could call you. You didn't say you would pick up the call. You didn't say you'd give me the appointment if I got you on the phone. You just said if I want to go back and do a bunch of work and try to call you, okay by you.
And oh, by the way, I'm probably not going to pick up the phone when you attempt to call again, just because,
you're busy. You got other things. But let's say you're really interested. If you were really interested, you still might not pick up the phone because you're doing 8 million other things. And I'm going to leave you a voicemail. Who knows? But the better way to do it is this. Hey, Denise, this has been a great meeting. Here's what I think we should do. I want to go back to my office, think about everything we talked about, get some ideas down on paper. And I'd like to come back and share those ideas with you next Tuesday at 3. When you agree to that, I know one thing for certain. You're interested. Because a busy executive like you, Denise, is not going to meet with me and then agree to give me more of your valuable time unless you're interested in what I've got. Plus, not only do I know you're interested, I'm shortening my sales cycle. Because let's say you are interested, but I do it the first way. I don't get a next meeting. I just say, I'll call you. Well, like you said, I call you, you might not pick up. Even if you want to hear what I have to say, you're busy doing other stuff. You're away from your desk. Who knows what's going on? So I leave you a message. You call me back. Do you get me? Not if you call me during this hour because all my phones are turned off. So Bill Gates could be waiting on voicemail for me, wanting me to come train the entire Microsoft team. Don't laugh, it could happen, even though he's not the chairman of the board anymore. But I'm not taking a call during this. So we'll probably trade a few voicemails over a couple of days, maybe even over a couple of weeks. And then once one of us finally gets the other one on the phone, I'm going to say, great, I've got your proposal already. Let's get together. But two busy executives like us could be another week, 2 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks before we can set a meeting. I'm going to save a bunch of time by just getting the meeting while I'm there. Always get the best next action step. That's my mantra for today.
And time kills all deals, right? So the longer that it takes for you to get that next step set up, the longer or the further away you are from ever really even closing that deal.
Maybe your competitor gets in there in the meantime. Who needs that? Move things forward. Little less patience. You have to be in sales. You have to be patiently impatient.
You always have to have a sense of urgency. Always. And the only way you know whether you truly have a prospect that's going to turn into an opportunity is if they can map to that sense of urgency. That being said, you should always really map to their urgency. However, they don't always know their urgency. We have to move them along sometimes.
And they don't care about ours. Our sales cycle means nothing. Their buying cycle means everything.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate the time. This has been an amazing conversation. I love that we've had an opportunity to come together and and really talk about prospecting, because I think that that's a lost art, as you mentioned. Originally, in all fairness, for those that are listening, I actually wanted to talk about just having good conversation, because I do think that we are struggling as salespeople to even have the conversation. And while I always I've always felt that that we're all being challenged these days with getting people on the phone or having the conversations in general, prospecting, because we've got the evolution of the sales cycle, and our buyers are different. They buy a bit differently today. We know all of that. But I always thought, it's really the conversation. And I don't know which one is right. The horse before the cart before the horse, chicken before the egg before the chicken. Doesn't really matter. But we are not doing a great job at prospecting either, in having enough of those conversations. So it doesn't matter whether we can have good conversations or not when we're not putting ourselves in the right position to have enough of them. It doesn't really matter whether we're having good ones. So so I appreciate us having this conversation, Jeff. I appreciate the relationship that we have been able to foster a bit over a short period of time. I am excited for the opportunities that we have as sales to continue to grow and flourish. If you don't know Jeff, make sure you go follow him. Jeff, what's the best way to engage with you or to keep up with all that you're doing?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Jeff Goldberg. My email is jeff@jgsalespro.com. You can also go to crushsalesgoals.com, which is talks about my group coaching program. I've got some just reach out to me anyways. Reach out to Denise. She knows how to get in touch with me, but LinkedIn is usually the easiest way.
And his LinkedIn handle is Crush Sales Goals. So it's scrolling along the bottom there. So you can always find him there. And we appreciate you coming on here, Jeff. I appreciate everyone who's out there listening. I also appreciate Chella, who it took me a long time to realize her comments were flowing. So thank you for sticking with us. If you're on Team Replay, be sure to put Team Replay in a hashtag below as well. We're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Central, Houston, Texas time. I appreciate everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a phenomenal continued start to your week. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the stream, and I'm actually going to try something cool as I end. I'm going to turn on some music. So we're going to see how that goes, because this will be the first time I've tried this.